Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're tackling something absolutely crucial, building that vital bridge between your identity governance, SailPoint, and your IT service management over in ServiceNow. On one side, you've got SailPoint figuring out exactly who gets access to what. On the flip side, there's ServiceNow, the engine actually fulfilling those requests and tracking all the work. So what's at stake here? Well, if we get this right, you're looking at a seamless, auditable, and literally lightning-fast identity security setup. But, get it wrong? You're staring down gaping security holes, totally broken workflows, and yeah, a lot of very frustrated users.
So before we pour even a single ounce of digital concrete, we really need to know exactly what kind of bridge we're building here. Why are we connecting these systems in the first place? It's definitely not just a generic plug-and-play situation. Are we trying to automatically pop open IT support tickets when someone needs access? Are we pulling an employee roster from ServiceNow straight into SailPoint? Or maybe we're letting users request access through a ServiceNow portal, and then SailPoint handles all the approvals. As an architect, you've absolutely got to know your exact destination before you start hammering away.
All right, here is our blueprint for today. We'll hit 1, the 3 core patterns, 2, prerequisites and foundation, 3, users' roles and access, 4, the secure API handshake, and finally, 5, validation and troubleshooting. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, the 3 core patterns, defining your integration destination. As I just hinted at, there are basically 3 distinct architectural paths you can take here.
Take a look at how the direction and purpose shift across these 3 paths. First up, the Service Desk Integration, or SDIM. This one flows outbound from SailPoint into ServiceNow. SailPoint essentially says, hey, this user needs access, and boom, it automatically opens an incident or service request for IT to fulfill. Second, we have the identity source or governance pattern. This actually goes the opposite way, ServiceNow to SailPoint. Here, ServiceNow is treated kind of like a managed system. SailPoint reaches in, pulls out the ServiceNow users, roles, and groups, and uses that data for access certification and lifecycle management. And third, the Service Catalog Request pattern. This also flows from ServiceNow to SailPoint. Your end users browse the ServiceNow portal, they submit an access request right there. But, and here's the kicker, instead of ServiceNow handling it, that request gets pushed directly over to SailPoint for its advanced approval workflows. So definitely confirm with your SailPoint architect which of these, or which combination, your project needs before doing anything else.
Moving right along to Section 2, Prerequisites and Foundation, Packing the Right Gear.
Before you start building, you need to pack the right gear. For the ServiceNow admin, this means gathering some specific intel right off the bat. You'll need your exact instance hostname, make sure to drop the HTTPS prefix there, your ServiceNow release version, and a clear picture of your network paths. You also really need to confirm your organization actually has the correct SailPoint licenses for the pattern you picked. Oh, and this is absolutely crucial. Make sure you have a non-production subprod instance ready. Never, ever build this directly in production. On the ServiceNow side, verify a few base platform plugins are active. You're going to need OAuth 2.0, the REST and table APIs, and if you're touching catalog items, the Service Catalog and Flow Designer plugins. Real quick too, there is one specific store app called SailPoint Identity IQ for Service Catalog. But listen, you only need this scoped app if you're using that Service Catalog request pattern. If you're just doing standard SDM ticket creation, skip it. Standard REST APIs handle that beautifully.
All right, Section 3. Users, roles, and access. Pouring the security concrete. We are now at a critical step, creating the integration user. Every single inbound API call from SailPoint needs a specific ServiceNow identity behind it. That's how we evaluate access rules and, frankly, how we keep a clean audit trail. Security here is absolutely paramount. In fact, there is a dramatic security rule straight from the technical guide you literally must follow. Never reuse a real employee's admin account. I know it sounds obvious, but it gets violated all the time in the real world. Why is it such a big deal? Well, imagine Bob from IT leaves the company, his account gets deactivated, and suddenly your entire SailPoint integration just completely breaks. Or even scarier, if the integration is compromised, the attacker now holds Bob's full system admin privileges. Yeah, no way. You absolutely must use a dedicated auditable internal integration user.
So how do we lock this down properly? It's a really precise 3-step sequence. Step 1. Create the user record. Give it a super obvious name, something like SVC SailPoint Integration, and check that internal integration user box. This is a brilliant little checkbox because it totally blocks interactive UI logins and exempts the account from annoying password expiration policies. Step 2. Create a custom role. Whatever you do, do not give this user admin or ITIL. Create a tailored role, maybe call it SailPoint Integration, and slap that onto your new user. And step 3, define precise access control lists, or ACLs. We're talking strict principle of least privilege here. The integration should only ever touch the exact tables and fields it actually needs to do its job.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is seeing just how dramatically these access permissions change based on the pattern you picked earlier. Just look at the STIM pattern. It needs to create, read, and write to tables like incident and SC_request to juggle those tickets. But then, look at the governance pattern. It's just syncing data, right? So it only requires read-only access to tables like sys_user and sys_user_group. If you accidentally give your governance integration write access, well, you've massively over-provisioned your security concrete. Always tailor your ACLs to match your specific pattern.
Which brings us to Section 4, the secure API handshake connecting the two castles.
All right, we know our destination, our gear is packed, the security concrete is set. Now it's time for the climax. The moment ServiceNow and SailPoint finally talk to each other securely. SailPoint authenticates using OAuth 2.0. To set this up, you just navigate over to the application registry in ServiceNow and create a new record. Give it a name, hit save, and ServiceNow automatically generates a client ID and a client secret for you. You then bind this OAuth application to that dedicated integration user we just set up, ensuring every API call is tracked perfectly. Once you've got that client ID and secret, you need to hand them off to your SailPoint engineer. But please, hear me on this. Use a secrets manager or some kind of encrypted channel. Never, under any circumstances, email those credentials in plain text.
Okay, so once they can authenticate, what exactly are they connecting to? You've got two main options. Option A is the built-in table API. This is your classic out-of-the-box solution. Zero custom code required. SailPoint just calls the standard API to read a user table or spin up an incident, and it's all gated perfectly by those ACLs we built. This is your go-to for standard SDIM and governance syncing. But sometimes you're going to need option B, a scripted REST API. You'll build one of these custom endpoints when you need logic that's a bit more complex than a basic read or write. For example, if you need to validate a request against a whole different database before creating a ticket, or maybe SailPoint needs a really specific, uniquely shaped JSON response. That's when you write a scripted REST API to handle that exact custom logic.
Let's trace how this actually looks for the service catalog pattern. Remember, this one works in reverse. ServiceNow is the one reaching out to SailPoint. The flow looks a little something like this. First, a user is browsing the ServiceNow portal and submits an access request. Second, that submission triggers a flow in Flow Designer. And third, that flow fires off an outbound REST message, authenticating via OAuth client credentials, straight into the SailPoint API. So essentially, ServiceNow is walking up, knocking on SailPoint's door, and dropping off the request.
Real quick, let's talk about an edge case you might bump into, the mid server. You'll definitely hear this term thrown around, but it's a mechanism that is only required when your SailPoint Identity IQ is deployed on premises, sitting behind an internal firewall, and literally cannot reach your cloud-based ServiceNow directly, or vice versa. If you're running a pure SaaS to SaaS workflow, like Identity Security Cloud talking to a cloud ServiceNow instance, you can completely ignore the mid server. It's totally isolated from modern cloud-to-cloud workflows.
Almost at the finish line. Section 5, validation and troubleshooting, testing the bridge's weight limit.
So the bridge is built, endpoints are exposed, credentials are exchanged. Now we have to methodically prove this integration actually holds up under pressure. Whatever you do not just message the SailPoint team, say it's ready, and hope for the best. You need to follow a strict 3-phase validation sequence. Phase 1, the isolate token test. Grab a tool like Postman or curl and request an OAuth token yourself using that ID and secret. If you hit a 401 error right out of the gate, your application registry is wrong. Go fix it before looping anyone else in. Phase 2, the isolate endpoint test. Take that shiny new token and actually call your table API or scripted API. Test it with valid data and then intentionally throw invalid data at it just to make sure your error handling is clean and isn't leaking system stack traces. Only after those two tests pass do you move to Phase 3, the end-to-end test. This is where you hop on a call with the SailPoint engineer, have them trigger a real provisioning action, and you watch that ticket populate live right there in ServiceNow.
And this slide brilliantly illustrates what to do when things inevitably hit a snag during testing. It's a rapid-fire troubleshooting cheat sheet mapping common HTTP errors directly to their root causes in ServiceNow. If SailPoint gets a 401 invalid_client error, don't panic. Just check your system OAuth application registry. It's probably the wrong ID, a bad secret, or maybe the app just isn't set to active. Now, if they successfully grab a token but hit a 403 forbidden error on the API call, that is almost certainly an SEL issue. Your custom integration role is probably just missing a specific read-or-write permission. And what if the whole integration seems to work flawlessly, but the ticket descriptions are coming across completely blank? That's just a field mapping mismatch between the SailPoint connector config and your actual ServiceNow dictionary names.
So, bringing it all together, what does this all mean? Integrating SailPoint and ServiceNow really isn't magic. It's just solid architecture. It's about systematically defining your destination, locking down least privileged access, executing a clean, secure OAuth handshake, and validating every single step of the flow. By following this blueprint, you're not just connecting two pieces of software, you are literally automating the security heartbeat of your entire organization. So how confident are you in your enterprise's identity security boundaries now that you hold the blueprint? I hope you feel totally ready and eager to execute this build. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.